Good evening and welcome to Conservative Chat, a show brought to you by the Barkhamsted Republican Town Committee. My name is Juliana Simone and my guest this evening is columnist Don Pesci.
Yep.
How are you, Don?
Very good. Nice to see you. Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Great seeing you.
Well, Don and most of my close friends and family know I've just been put through the ringer the last 10 days or so, and so I kind of wasn't really in the mood to do a show, but I think that all of you that watched the John Piscopo, State Representative John Piscopo hour that's been showing, feel it was worthwhile. I caught it a couple of times and I thought there was a lot of content in that, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you now enjoy the new show with Don. Prior to that, I was in Texas with Jerry Padula, and we were fascinated by the patriotism that just is everywhere there. I mean, I'd say every house on the street had the American flag hanging on one side and the Texas flag hanging on the other side. Yeah. And we covered a good portion of the state and saw that everywhere. It never ebbed. And we were thinking, and what a contrast that was to Connecticut. You never see anyone, it's very rare you see anyone hanging the Connecticut state flag.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true, that Lone Star State, you know. Kennedy had an encounter in Texas during his run for the presidency when he was a senator. He visited the Alamo. Everybody visits the Alamo on campaign.
It's probably on the to-do list. It's a big state. There's lots to do. But yeah.
So he was giving a speech. He gave a speech to all the people who were assembled in the place where Travis and Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie really died. Yeah. And the speech was very well received. You know, it was very well received, but Kennedy was in a hurry to be someplace else. You know. So he turns to the tour guide and he says, "Where's the back door?" And she says, "Senator Kennedy, there are no back doors to the Alamo, only heroes." You know?
Wow.
So that's Texas.
Yes, you know? Yes, it was. It's very interesting learning about the Republic of Texas and all of that. I'm glad that I went and learned all of those things. It's just such a contrast to Connecticut.
It is.
To see that pride, that Texas pride.
It is.
And maybe it's from that whole history, but I mean, we certainly had to fight for our states too, and at our Revolutionary War and all those things. Yeah. But I just, I thought that was interesting. So, because for all the people that just voted for Governor Lamont, I mean, I don't see them waving Connecticut state flags. Most people I know don't wave them because everyone's trying to leave.
Yeah,
or they feel they're stuck here and can't leave.
I wonder.
So you don't get that feeling.
I wonder sometimes if there's some sort of a prohibition against flying the Connecticut flag on an ordinary person's flag pole.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's an interesting thought.
It might be interesting to find out if there is. I don't see why there should be. You know.
I don't either. That would be another reason no one would be flying.
Another reason to move out of Connecticut and go to Texas. You know.
Yes, I know it. Gosh, I think I know at least 2 or 3 people that have moved there. So there's a lot going on at our General Assembly here in Connecticut, and one of the big topics, of course, it's the tolls. I just want to touch on it a little bit because we get it here every day on our talk radio, and so it's been covered a great deal and effectively. But how do you see that going?
Well, I think that there's a mounting opposition to tolls, and the issue itself is not new. It's been brought up before.
Right. Well, all those things are always brought up again and again in the General Assembly until they get their way.
Right. This time, some of the Republicans are actually leading the charge. Laura Devlin, I think, is one of the people who's leading the no-toll movement. She's not leading the movement, but she's attached herself in some indirect way to the no-toll movement, and those people are very lively, I would say. You know, there are meetings and assemblies in almost every section of Connecticut right now, and people are offended by the whole notion of tolls because we've just gradually been recovering from the 2 astounding tax increases that were levied by the Malloy administration.
Right.
Taken together, those two tax increases represent the largest tax increase of any administration in state history. So we're recovering from that. There was some quasi good news a few weeks ago that we had finally come out of the recession, and that was a bad news report. We haven't quite yet come out of the recession. The recession ended 9 years ago. So, you know, Connecticut is in a very is not in a good, happy place right now.
I think I think in a general synopsis, the problem is the only pro-toll argument people used to kind of get behind was that trucks and things like that were just using our roads to get from New Jersey or New York through Connecticut to Massachusetts and further north.
Right.
And not having to pay anything.
Right.
And Lamont, when he ran for governor, said as a result he would only tax the trucks. But of course,
heavy trucks. Yeah.
Right, that didn't. But then that people argued, then we'd see that price markup in the stores. That it would probably come back to the consumer. But
Right.
I think the biggest argument now is that they want to put so many of them up. I mean, you'll probably have to, if you're going to work and you have to go through maybe 3 towns or use a couple of highways, you're going to be paying, like you're going to be pulling over, or if they put a little, you know, if it's on your windshield, whatever.
Right.
I mean, you're going to have maybe 3-4 tolls each way.
60% of the toll of the you know, cash realized in tolling will come from people who live in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
And you know, you're right. Boston, I think, Massachusetts, I think, has about 16 toll stations. And the federal government, since Connecticut did away with its tolling after the accident, after the tolling accident, they did away with its tolling. And now to resurrect tolling, you have to have what's called congestion tolling. This is a federal requirement, so we're going to end up with, I mean, one of the commissions that was assembled by Ned Lamont came up with something like 28 to 38 toll gantries. So it's going to be very, very expensive. You know, it's going to be extremely expensive, and people can't bear the expense anymore. They just can't. It's also being sold under false premises, because the Malloy administration is saying that that it's going to be put into a federal lockbox, and you know, the funds that are going to be put in there are going to be inviolable. Nobody in the state of Connecticut will be able to touch them. However, it's possible to intercept the funds before they get into the lockbox and then divert it. It's called a diversement.
With what vehicle?
Yeah, it's called a diversement.
I see.
And it's a diversion. I'm sorry. It's called a diversion. And it's been done before. You know, it's been done before. So you know, you just intercept the funds, and you steer the funds into the you steer the funds slated for the transportation fund into the general fund. You know, it's the difference between robbing a bank and robbing an armored car that's on the way to the bank.
I think, yeah. Well, I think that I saw on Facebook too. My friend, that's the first selectman of Harwinton, Mike Chris, and Rob Simmons in Stonington, because he's the first selectman there. Also, my friend. Hi, Rob. I think they were just down. I think they went to a hearing the other day, because I guess now the state's trying to take the car tax from the towns,
right? And
saying that, you know, they'll get it back somehow. But they were there to, you know, say that we're against that.
We'll collect it for you and then apportion it to you.
Yeah, they don't think they'll ever see it.
No.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of things like that going on. Whenever you think it can't get worse here, it amazingly does.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the educational efforts, mostly put forward by by Martin Looney, who's the Senate.
Been there a long time.
Yeah, he's been there for 21 years, and he's the Senate pro tem. So he's the guy who actually steers the bills towards the legislature, and so he occupies a very important position, and you know, he wants a regionalization of schools.
Right. Well, that topic's been around a long time too.
Yeah, that's been around a long time too. But that's what he wants, and the Republicans don't have the numbers in the General Assembly anymore to resist some of these measures.
Yes.
You know, so that makes all these proposals a little bit dangerous.
Well, that was another tragic thing about last fall's election, was not only were we the state to lose a governor's race that we should have won, but we also, surprisingly to some, and I was one of them, lost Senate seats and House seats. So we just really took a hit.
Yeah, so now
they're very much back in power again. Yes.
Now we're
push
back
all
to
this stuff through. So.
Back to the same spot. The Republicans are back to the same spot they occupied during the first, when Dan Malloy first came to office, and we know what happened then. He just closed the door on Republicans and proceeded to do whatever he wanted to do with majority Democrats.
Right, but you know that Tom Scott, that he was a former state senator some time ago, and he's been subbing for our radio host Todd Feinberg in the afternoons. Yeah, he's been, but he also is bold enough to say that some of this falls on the Connecticut leadership, as Republican leadership as well, and he often makes negative comments about our Senate Majority Leader Len Fasano and about our Connecticut Party Chair J.R. Romano and people like that. So he feels the Republicans don't push back hard enough and just kind of go along or just aren't good at what they do. So
I just finished giving a keynote over in.
I know you did. I read it right when I got it on my phone that morning. I think, and as soon as you sent it to me, I hit the link and I read it. It was very good.
Yeah. So, and during the question and answer period, which is not, those texts aren't available. Somebody asked me, a similar question: what should Republicans do, or what do you think is going to happen? And I told them basically, just have courage, and believe in your standards. Put your standards on high ground so that they can be seen from a distance. Also, try and have some sort of other than a ghostly presence in at least one of the cities in Connecticut, because at this point, all Democrats have to do in order to sweep all the offices is to win 3 states, which is very easy for them, and then a few other spots in order to just win elections by large majorities. So these are things that Republicans should be thinking about. You have to think about
right.
these things.
We have the Connecticut Republican Party has the election coming up or they have the choice of electing a new chair or re-electing our current one. And I think that's in June. And there's a lot of discourse about that as well.
There's every time, I remember when Healy.
But you have to be a state central member to vote. So.
When Healy was chairman and they suffered some losses, the same arguments were making the rounds. I don't know, whether you should treat chairmen as sacrificial goats. I'm not convinced that should be the case. I think you need a certain amount of continuity in that particular office.
Yeah, it's just, but usually compared to a corporation with that kind of hit, you would be fired.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I don't know. I'm not a state central member. I just know that there's many that would like a change, but we'll just have to wait that out and see.
Well, you wouldn't want to be a state central member unless you could occupy all the state central positions, right?
Do you know what I was thinking? I was thinking there should be term limits for the state central membership.
Yeah,
that's something no one ever discusses, but I was thinking part of the problem with why the conventions, and I've been to 7 now, I think, why they're always such a melee and so crazy, and people get thrown under the bus that have already spent a fortune and all these things, and I think it's because you have the same state central membership that's been there so long, and they're used to these manipulations and doing these things, and so I was thinking maybe with some term limits and some fresh membership with, new ideas and different, integrity.
Different eyes on the same
problems. Just a different kind of integrity that, maybe the conventions would go more smoothly. We'd end up with a sure candidate, a better candidate, or one that everyone is collectively agreeing to support and vote for. Because I think that was something that was interesting to me too. When I heard Tom Scott say the other day, that was one figure I hadn't heard yet. But I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought he said there were 170,000 Republicans that did not vote on Election Day. It might have been 70,000, so I don't remember which it was, because I'm always doing things when I'm listening to the radio, so I don't always hear everything perfectly. But either way, if that many stayed home for such a vital election, and there's not that we are the minority party here, that's discouraging.
Really, one of the mistakes that Republicans not always make, but one of the mistakes that they made during the last election was to simply assume that things were so bad and people have been so assaulted by Democratic proposals that obviously didn't work, that they really didn't have to do a lot of groundwork. You know, all they had to do was to just sit back and and wait for the votes to come in. Now, there's a certain amount of that that happens during every election, and you're right. You need central party. The central party membership is the connective tissue that connects parties to people. So they should be more representative. They should be more active. They should be more vigorous. You know, and there has to be a way. There has to be a way for them to make decisions early enough so that they're not shooting themselves in the foot when conventions roll around. You know, so some people have suggested the scheduling is wrong. You know.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's also that's been talked about a lot. I've worked for candidates. You know, I'm a campaign worker, so. Gosh, I think way back with Mark Greenberg when I was his field director on his first run, that he was a very bright man. He saw stuff before anybody did.
A very kind man, too.
Yes, well,
people somehow his personality didn't come across.
I know it.
There somehow. I don't know why, but it just didn't come across.
I know it, but he would have been great. He would have been great in office. But he was the first person to mention, though, that the primary being in August was too late, and it gave you the candidate that then was actually endorsed too little a time.
Right. I think Republicans are batting that idea around. As far as I know, they're considering it. There's some serious thought about it, about changing some things, and that would be a good idea. You know, that I think that would be a good idea.
He also liked the idea of going straight to primary.
Yeah.
You know, and avoiding the convention and letting the people decide.
But then what happens to the connective tissue? We don't know. You know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen it work that well. So I don't know. I thought he was right about that. Let the people decide. I mean, that's who's voting. Yeah. So I don't know. I've just seen too much manipulation all the time at those conventions, and you always think maybe with each new chair that's going to change, but no, they just change it to what they want. So
people assume incorrectly, I think, that that the chairman, Republican Party chairman, have much more power than they actually do. They really don't. They're facilitators mostly, and they're always under pressure not to pick winners and losers. You know, during the convention. So, well, I mean. Outwardly, they're under that.
That was the key word we needed. Outwardly, okay.
There's a lot of back room. There's still a lot of smoke-free back rooms, you know, where things happen. Yeah, no, that's true.
You remember who you're talking to. So you also wrote me today, though, that some of the good news you thought in terms of our nation and crazy people out there that want socialism, you know, and some of our new Congress people that are strange. You thought the veils are coming off of the Democrat Party now, so
absolutely.
You think that's a good thing because people need to know who they are.
I think it's a good thing, and I couldn't help but notice that Nancy Pelosi is having some difficulty with the barbarians, you know, the people who proclaim themselves socialists and want to rejigger the entire country like AOC there. I don't know where she's getting her ideas from, but boy.
They said that she was Bernie Sanders' protege or something. That's where her ideas come from.
Yeah, well, there's always been, there's a ladder of influence within the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
it goes from depending on bottom and top, whichever way you want to put the ladder, but it goes from there are liberals, and then there are progressives, and then there are socialists, and then way down in the bottom someplace there are some communists routing around in the dirt, So the descent from liberalism to progressivism to socialism to communism is always there as a possibility. And what we're seeing now nationally is a move away from liberalism towards socialism at exactly the wrong moments in history, where it's failed so spectacularly in places like Venezuela, which used to be the pearl of Latin America, and now people are rooting around in garbage containers to get food, and there's a shortage of toilet paper, and unfortunately they still have a dictator to deal with in Maduro, but there is some opposition beginning to build there. I know that Trump is trying to make some inroads into some of the larger countries in South America also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that about Donald.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Nothing stays still with him. He's always he's a mover. He always likes to move things around.
He is. He's a doer, and he doesn't look at any door as closed.
I think Brazil, isn't it Brazil that he's talking to somebody? There's a.
I used to always want to go there, but now they say the crime is terrible.
Yeah. Well,
I always wanted to fly in, and see the statue up there. I just thought that was, you see that in movies sometimes. I always thought it was beautiful.
Yeah,
but,
so...
a lot of these places have been ruined, unfortunately.
Well, the United States has had a real bad rap, mostly among communists in Latin America, like Castro and the Ortega brothers, who keep reminding everybody that they had intervened in the past in Latin America and have had installed dictators to their liking. That hasn't happened in a long, long time, but there's been a kind of an unofficial hands-off policy on Latin America for a long, long time. People don't want to make any real commitments there. I think that's going to change a little bit with this Trump administration. I don't imagine he'll send troops anywhere, but there is a pretty aggressive diplomacy going on right now.
Yeah,
so that's good.
What did you think about his recent visit with the North Korean with Kim?
I don't know.
He did because the press. I don't know if you remember. I don't watch. I'm sort of not even watching Fox News as much anymore, but except for a couple of hosts I really like and I feel I can trust. But I think that if you remember that day, while he was in these important negotiations with him, they split-screened the screen on CNN and MSNBC and some of the networks to their grilling of his former attorney.
Yeah, Cohen.
Yeah, Cohen. That was a real snake.
Yeah.
And that was farcical because that guy, is already going to go do time for lying to Congress, and now we're supposed to believe his testimony. The whole thing was ridiculous.
The guy really is living up to everybody's worst expectations of lawyers. I mean, it's not possible to get to have on the public stage a lawyer who's worse than he is. He's just awful. And I don't know a single attorney that I'm in contact with in Connecticut who would smile at him at this point because he's simply betrayed every ethical obligation of attorneys. But that's true. The media does like to kick Trump in the shins whenever it gets a chance to do it.
They even gave him a closing statement, which they said had historically never been done before.
Right.
I mean, so the whole thing was just...
He could be prosecuted again, for lying to Congress again for a second time. He could that possibly could happen. Also, Mueller's winding up his investigation.
That's what they say.
Well, I think he is. And Trump has just said this morning, yeah, sure, make it public. I wouldn't mind if you made it public.
Well, it's amazing to me, too, that they have all this time to investigate all these people over a completely false story to begin with the Russian collusion, you know, with Trump and the election results. But they didn't have any time at all to investigate Hillary Clinton for innumerable things.
Yeah,
I mean, probably 10 easily she could have been.
Well, she's a fish out of the fishbowl at this point, so I don't think anybody's interested in throwing her in jail.
What did you think about, I know, it's too bad. What did you think about Fox giving Judge Janine a little hiatus there for her remarks?
I heard that for the first time actually yesterday, and then I think I was on the radio today for a little bit. I don't know. I don't believe them. I don't think that she was let go because she said anything untoward or actionable, actually, against Islam. I listened to that broadcast and I didn't hear anything there. So I think maybe they're thinking they want to soften their opinion page, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the buzz going around.
Yeah, I think that's
which is why they're losing their base, really.
Yeah, I think that's what they're.
Because they just hired that Donna Brazile and other you know, people like that Fox viewers have no interest in watching. And Judge Janine was very smart, and she was a tough cookie. I know
she also was very careful.
A lot of people that watched her,
she also was very careful because she was a judge.
Yeah.
I think she knew where all the pit holes, where all the holes were, and scrupulously avoided saying things that would get her dismissed. And I don't think it's fair to dismiss her for the reasons that they're alleged there.
She can hopefully get back on. What is that? There's that new conservative. You have to pay for it on your cable if your cable provider carries it. But
the 11.
What is it?
He's on there 11. And
all those people. And Bill O'Reilly's back on that.
Yeah.
All of them are there.
Bench Bureau's there too. I think,
so maybe she can go back to that. Because I don't like these voices to be silenced. You know, they're all very important.
That's what I was telling the Republicans at the keynoter. Said, don't go away. I mean, just stay there. I mean, there were people there, very very good candidates there who lost. Hatfield lost to Tong.
Oh, I know.
For the AG's position.
I know it.
And that's a real shame.
Oh, that's what I want to get in real quick in my last minute. The one thing that made me happy, though, in Connecticut Republican politics just recently was the special election for the state Senate, and the guy that, any of you that know my history, and you can look it up, that raided my desk when I was working for the Republican caucus in the Government Administrations and Elections Committee, and he stupidly did it right under a security camera right over my desk, and the video's up on YouTube and stuff. Anyway, he gave up his state rep seat to think he was going to just automatically be able to walk into the state Senate, Rick Lopes from New Britain.
Yeah.
With a little part of Farmington, but he lost.
Yeah.
And so we gained a Senate seat, a Republican Senate seat to, I think his name's Bizarro. So the Republican won, and Mr. Lopes did not. And one friend that knew me way back then wrote me and said, talk about karma. That one took 12 years, but
I saw that
I'll
video.
take it.
It was so obvious they were rifling your area there. It was
yes, that's my silver lining for all of my viewers right now with Connecticut and the whole election process.
All right.
So we'll keep looking for those, right, Don?
Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
Good to see you.
Okay, it's nice seeing you too, Juliana.
Good night.
All right, bye-bye.